Alright, let's be real. Guys aren't always the best at expressing their feelings directly. But if you look closely, the signs are always there. And sometimes they're downright weird. Today, I'm breaking down the 6 strange but totally revealing things a guy will do when he's seriously into you. So, if you've been wondering, is he just being friendly or is there more to it? Stick around, because once you know these signs, you'll never be confused again. When a guy is into you, one of the first things you'll notice, if you're paying close attention, is how strangely awkward he becomes around you. And we're not talking about the obvious kind of awkwardness, like tripping over his feet or spilling his drink, although sometimes that happens too. No, this is a different kind of awkward. Subtle, cute, and almost impossible for him to control. Even guys who are usually confident, charismatic, or the cool and collected I can suddenly lose their composure when they develop strong feelings for someone. It's like their brain short circuits the moment you walk into the room. Think about it. When we like someone, our emotions heighten. We become hyper aware of how we look, what we say, and how we're being perceived. For a guy who's crushing on you, that means he's probably overthinking every interaction. Did he say the right thing? Was his joke funny enough? Did you notice the way he fixed his hair before talking to you? And because of all that overthinking, the most natural result is awkwardness. Lots of it. You might catch him doing things like fidgeting with his hands or playing with whatever's in front of him. His phone, a cup, his sleeves. He might laugh a little too loudly at your jokes, even if they weren't that funny. Not because he's being fake, but because he genuinely finds you amusing and doesn't want to miss a chance to connect with you. His body language might look off too. Crossed arms that uncross quickly, shoulders that tense up when you're near, or even him shifting his posture to either get closer or seem more manly. Then there's the eye contact or lack of it. Eye contact is a big deal when it comes to attraction, and a guy who's into you might either hold it a little too long or avoid it completely. If he's on the shy side, he might look away the moment your eyes meet, pretending like he was just glancing around the room. If he's more of a bold personality, he might lock eyes with you, but then give this nervous smile that he can't quite control. Either way, the eyes will give him away eventually. Now, let's talk about the way he talks. His tone might change around you. He could start speaking faster, stumbling over his words, or going off on random tangents just to keep the conversation going. Sometimes guys try to act cool or uninterested, but they end up saying weird things or awkwardly slipping compliments into a sentence. For example, he might say something like, "That's a weird choice of color for a dress, but it actually looks good on you." Like really good. Anyway, yeah. And then he'll probably want to crawl into a hole for the rest of the day. This kind of awkwardness often extends to physical gestures too. Like, maybe he goes in for a high five and then switches it into a handshake halfway through. Or he brushes against you by accident and then apologizes 3 times, even though it was nothing. Sometimes he'll do something super random like fixing his hair every 2 seconds when you're nearby, or checking his reflection in his phone camera. Not because he's vain, but because he wants to look his best when you're around. And here's the funny part. His friends probably notice it too. In fact, they might even tease him about it in front of you, dropping hints, nudging him, or making inside jokes. That kind of reaction is usually a big giveaway. Guys don't typically act awkward around people they're not interested in. If he's confident with others but weirdly nervous around you, there's a good chance his feelings are way deeper than he's letting on. Sometimes the awkwardness shows in his timing too. Maybe he's always accidentally running into you in places where he wouldn't normally be. Or maybe he messages you and then leaves it at something totally random like, hey, do you like nachos? Not because he actually cares that much about nachos, but because he just wanted a reason to talk to you and panicked at the last second. What's important to understand is that this weird behavior doesn't come from a place of manipulation or gameplay. It comes from genuine emotion. When a guy likes someone, and especially if he hasn't fully processed those feelings or figured out how to express them, his body and mind can go a little haywire. It's like he's got butterflies doing backflips inside. And no matter how hard he tries, he can't fully keep his cool. It's actually kind of sweet, like a real-life romantic comedy, only without the dramatic music in the background. Of course, not every guy will react this way. Some may try to hide their feelings behind sarcasm, teasing, or acting uninterested. But even then, if you pay close attention, the awkwardness finds a way to slip through the cracks. Maybe it's the way he lingers around you just a little longer than necessary, or how he stares at the ground when he talks about serious stuff. Maybe it's the sudden silence in the middle of a group conversation when you walk in, because he's suddenly self-conscious and doesn't want to say anything dumb in front of you. What's beautiful about this stage is that it's raw, it's unscripted, it's vulnerable. This isn't the polished Instagram filtered version of someone. It's the real them. And when someone allows themselves to be awkward around you, it's because they care enough to drop the mask. They may not always say the perfect thing or act super smooth, but their feelings show through. Every nervous laugh, fumbled word, and random compliment. So the next time you notice a guy acting just a little off around you, more nervous, more clumsy, more unsure, don't be so quick to assume he's uninterested. It might just be the opposite. He could be battling a storm of emotions he's too afraid to express out loud. And in a world where people often hide how they really feel, that kind of awkward honesty is actually something kind of special. When a guy is truly into you, one of the biggest giveaways is how much attention he pays to the little things, those small details that most people either miss or forget entirely. It might seem insignificant at first, but when you take a closer look, it's actually one of the most telling signs of genuine interest. It's not always about grand romantic gestures or loud declarations of love. Sometimes it's about how he remembers that your favorite ice cream flavor is pistachio, even though you mentioned it once in passing during a random conversation weeks ago. This kind of attention doesn't come from someone who's just casually interested or being polite. It comes from someone who is emotionally invested, who values what you say, and who wants to show you, often in subtle, quiet ways, that you matter. When a guy is into you, your words don't just go in one ear and out the other. They stick. They replay in his mind, and without even realizing it, he starts collecting pieces of who you are, your preferences, your habits, the things you love and hate. For example, let's say you once told him you don't like rainy weather because it makes you feel gloomy. Don't be surprised that the next time it rains, he sends you a meme or a voice note just to make you smile. Or maybe he changes plans so you don't have to walk in the rain at all. That's not a coincidence. That's intention. He's paying attention not just to your words, but to your feelings. He wants to be someone who brings comfort, someone who anticipates your needs without you having to say them out loud. You might also notice him remembering the way you take your coffee, what song you were humming last week, or that story you told about your childhood dog. And he doesn't just remember the facts, he remembers how you felt when you shared them. That emotional memory sticks with him. He might bring it up later, not to show off, but to reconnect with you emotionally, to say, without words, I heard you, I see you, I care. What's fascinating about this behavior is how unconscious it often is. He might not even realize he's doing it. It's not always calculated or deliberate, but because his feelings for you are genuine, his brain naturally starts highlighting everything related to you. You become the person his focus keeps returning to. He might find himself noticing your favorite color in the clothes people wear, or catching himself smiling when he hears a song that reminds him of you. He might find himself smiling when he hears a song that reminds him of you. Another example. Suppose you once casually mentioned that you're nervous about an upcoming presentation or interview. A guy who's into you might check in on that specific day with a message like, "Hey, good luck today. You've got this." That might seem small, but it shows he not only remembered the event, he cared enough to support you emotionally. That kind of emotional tracking doesn't happen unless someone's feelings run deeper than surface level interest. This attentiveness often spills into how he interacts with you in social settings too. Let's say you're in a group and you make a comment about not liking spicy food. He'll remember that. Next time you're all ordering food together, he might gently steer the group towards something milder, or at the very least, make sure there's a non-spicy option for you. Again, it's not about being overly accommodating, but speaking up for someone's free will. He's gently staring his desires. He's also showing yours, the smallest, milder, and non-spicy option for you. Again, it's not about being overly accommodating. It's about being tuned in. He's watching, learning, and adjusting based on what makes you feel comfortable and happy. What's also interesting is how he handles your moods and emotions. If he's truly into you, he'll start noticing the changes in your energy, even the subtle ones. You may walk into a room with a slightly different tone in your voice, and he'll be the first to ask, "Hey, you okay?" Or maybe you're quiet one day, and instead of brushing it off, he gives you space, but also checks in later with something thoughtful. Now, that kind of awareness shows that he's not just focused on your words, he's connected to how you feel. It means your emotional world matters to him. And this kind of attentiveness isn't limited to happy or easy things either. He'll remember your fears, your insecurities, and your boundaries. If you once told him that you hate being teased about a certain thing, he'll make sure not to joke about it, even if other people do. If you mention that you get anxious in crowded places, he might suggest a quieter place next time you hang out. It's in those respectful, protective behaviors that you see the depth of his care. Sometimes the memory of small things becomes a way for him to reconnect. Let's say you once told him about your dream to travel to Japan. Weeks later, out of the blue, he sends you a video about Japanese culture, or a TikTok of a street food vendor in Tokyo. That's not just him being cute, it's his way of saying, "I'm thinking about you, I remember your dreams, I support them." Even if he doesn't say those words out loud, his actions speak volumes. And it goes both ways. If he remembers the good, he also remembers the tough stuff. Maybe you had a bad day and shared something vulnerable. A guy who's into you won't just offer sympathy in the moment. He'll check in the next day or the next week to see how you're doing. He's invested in your well-being, not just in sharing laughs, but in being a source of support when things aren't easy. All of this adds up to something powerful: emotional intimacy. When someone remembers the small details about you, it's because they're building a connection that goes beyond the surface. They're not just trying to impress you, they're trying to know you. And knowing someone deeply requires more than just attraction. It requires empathy, consistency, and presence. That's what separates a guy who's truly into you from one who's just casually interested. Now, some people might try to fake this level of attentiveness to gain favor, but usually that doesn't last. Genuine attention is consistent. It's not something he turns on when it's convenient. If he's truly into you, these behaviors will appear naturally and regularly, not just when he wants something from you. Over time, his actions will speak louder than any compliments or sweet words. So, if you ever find yourself wondering whether a guy likes you, pay attention to how much he pays attention to your words, your habits, your emotions, and even the seemingly boring little details about your life. If he remembers things you've only said once, brings them up at just the right time, and uses them to connect or care for you, chances are he's not just being nice. He's genuinely into you. Be in. And in a world full of distractions and half-hearted conversations, someone who remembers the small things is someone who's worth noticing right back. When a guy is into you, he often goes out of his way to impress you, but not always in the ways you might expect. Instead of doing something typical or textbook romantic, like giving flowers or delivering smooth compliments, he might start doing oddly specific, quirky things that seem a little weird on the surface. These efforts, however, are his unique way of saying, I like you and I want to stand out in your eyes. You might find yourself wondering why he suddenly cares about topics he never mentioned before, or why he's behaving in ways that just seem off-brand for him. That's because deep down, he's trying to impress you. And when emotions are involved, logic sometimes takes a back seat. Let's take one common example. He starts showing interest in your interests, but not just a little curiosity. He might go overboard. If you mention you love a specific TV show, suddenly he's binge watching it and quoting lines from your favorite episodes. If you tell him you enjoy hiking, he might start planning trail trips or asking for recommendations. Even if he's never hiked in his life, this isn't manipulation. It's admiration. He's trying to create common ground, build a connection, and maybe even show that you have more in common than you realized. He wants you to see him as someone who gets you, or, at the very least, someone who wants to get you. You might also notice that he becomes unusually curious about your life. Not just the usual, how was your day, but more like, what made you want to study that major? Or why do you love that particular band? These deeper, thoughtful questions can sometimes come out in slightly awkward ways, but they come from a real place. He's trying to learn about you, and he's hoping his interest shows that he's invested. Often, he's hoping you'll be impressed by the fact that he cares enough to ask and listen. Another weird thing he might do is subtly, or not so subtly, try to display his talents or strengths around you. This could range from impressive to downright goofy. Maybe he suddenly picks up a guitar if he plays just randomly when you're around. Or maybe he volunteers to fix something, show you a skill, or tell you an interesting fact just to seem knowledgeable. He's trying to showcase parts of himself that he thinks might catch your attention. And here's where things can get funny. Sometimes guys overdo it. You might catch him throwing in random facts, trying too hard to be funny, or mentioning something he accomplished in a way that's clearly aimed at getting your reaction. This effort to impress might also spill into his appearance. Suddenly he's dressing a little sharp, changing his hairstyle, wearing a new cologne, doing things he hopes you'll notice. And what's funny is he may not admit he's doing it for you, but if you say, hey, you look nice today, he'll light up inside. It's his silent way of preparing for the possibility of you noticing him more and valuing your opinion more than anyone else's. Now, sometimes these attempts get awkward. He might try a new joke that totally flops, or talk about something he clearly doesn't understand. But the important thing is not whether he gets it perfect. It's that he's trying. A guy who's trying to impress you in weird ways is actually showing his vulnerability. He knows he's putting himself out there, risking embarrassment, maybe even feeling silly, but he still does it because you're worth it to him. In group settings, this behavior becomes even more obvious. You may notice he becomes louder, funnier, or tries to take the lead when you're around. If he's telling a story, he might make sure you're listening. He might laugh harder at your jokes than anyone else, or react to things you say with more enthusiasm. It's like you bring out a different side of him, the side that wants to shine a little brighter, not to be arrogant, but because your attention matters more than the rest. Another quirky way guys try to impress is by being helpful. He might offer rides, help with errands, or jump at any opportunity to assist you, even when you didn't ask for it. He's hoping you'll see him as dependable, strong, useful. In his mind, that reliability earns him a place in your life. So while it might seem weird that he suddenly wants to help you rearrange your bookshelf or carry your groceries, it's just his way of saying, look, I'm here for you. Sometimes these efforts come with a little competitive energy too. If there are other guys around, he might subtly or not so subtly try to one-up them. Maybe he jokes a little louder, answers questions faster, or tries to show off just a bit more when other guys are in the mix. It's not about being toxic or jealous, it's more about wanting to be the one you notice the most. He's competing for your attention in the most human way possible, even if it leads to some funny or awkward moment. And then there's the social media factor. If he's into you, he might suddenly start reacting to your stories, leaving funny comments or posting things that seem oddly in sync with your interests. Maybe he shares a song you mentioned or posts a meme related to a private joke you two share. Again, these aren't coincidences. They're small digital footprints of a guy trying to say, hey, I'm thinking of you in the only ways he knows how. But perhaps one of the most charming and weird things he might do to impress you is try to be more emotionally open. For some guys, this doesn't come naturally. But if he's into you, he might start sharing things about his life, his goals, his struggles. He's hoping that by being honest, he'll show you he's more than just a fun time. He's someone you can trust. And because emotional vulnerability can feel risky, this kind of self-disclosure is a major sign he's trying to earn your admiration and connection. It's important to understand that while some of these efforts might look odd, cringy, or over the top, they're coming from a sincere place. He's not trying to be fake. He's trying to be seen. And sometimes in trying to stand out, guys do the strangest things. But that's part of what makes it real. It's imperfect, unpolished, and honest. So next time you see a guy acting a little unusual around you, taking interest in your obscure hobbies, cracking random jokes, or going out of his way to be helpful, don't dismiss it. He might just be trying to impress you in his own weird and wonderful way. And while it may not look like a fairy tale, it's those quirky, unfiltered efforts that often reveal the truest kind of interest. ChatGPT said, when a guy is into you, one of the weirdest but most telling signs is how nervous or awkward he can become around you. It might seem strange. Shouldn't someone who likes you feel excited and confident when they're near you? In theory, yes. But in real life, genuine feelings often come with anxiety, vulnerability, and a strong desire not to mess things up. That nervousness, even when it seems clumsy or out of character, is actually a major sign that you mean something to him. Let's start with body language. You might notice that he fidgets a lot when you're around, playing with his keys, adjusting his clothes, tapping his fingers, or shifting in his seat. These are all signs of nervous energy. When a guy is into you, his mind is racing with thoughts like, what should I say next? Or did that sound stupid? Or does she like me back? That inner tension leaks out physically, often without him even realizing it. You become the one person in the room he wants to impress most, which puts pressure on him, even if you haven't asked for it. He might also start stumbling over his words. A guy who's normally confident and articulate can suddenly forget how to finish a sentence when he's talking to you. He might mispronounce simple words, repeat himself, or say things that don't quite make sense. This isn't because he's unintelligent or socially awkward. It's because your presence affects him deeply. The more he likes you, the more his thoughts become clouded by nerves and he starts second-guessing himself. You'll also notice changes in eye contact. Some guys get shy and avoid direct eye contact altogether, while others might overcompensate by staring a little too long. Either way, it's rarely smooth. He might glance at you often, but look away quickly when you catch him. Or he might lock eyes with you and forget what he was saying. His eyes will be doing a lot of talking, even when his words don't. Another classic sign is the awkward laughter. If he laughs at your jokes, even when they aren't that funny, it might be a nervous response. Laughter is a way to relieve stress and create connection. And when a guy is into you, he'll often laugh more around you than he does around others. It's not fake laughter. It's his brain trying to lighten the tension he feels in your presence. You'll notice it especially when there's a pause in conversation or when he doesn't know how to respond. He'll fill the silence with a chuckle or a smile, hoping to keep the interaction going without making things uncomfortable. This nervous behavior can also show up in unexpected pauses. You might ask him a question and he takes just a little too long to answer. That's not because he didn't hear you, it's because he's trying to carefully choose the right words. He doesn't want to say the wrong thing or come across as disinterested, so he hesitates. That silence, though brief, can reveal how much he's trying to impress you, even if it ends up making things a little awkward. One of the most interesting signs is how his behavior changes when you're not around versus when you are. Maybe your mutual friends describe him as chill, funny, relaxed, but when he's with you, he becomes jumpy or overly polite or suddenly very quiet.